what I really want to talk about today is a few different things, but I want to start by talking about this idea that I have talked about for years and always stands the test of time and is always true, which is that launches are made between launches, right? I'm sure you all have heard me say that before, but what I mean by that is something like Black Friday, right? Is a launch. Like it's, and we put so much energy into like what happens on the like Friday to the Monday or whatever your launch window is there. And we get so invested in that. But what we so often forget is what actually is going to make that launch successful is what happened in all the time leading up to it, in the 90 days before Black Friday. It's not just in what happened on those 4 days from like Friday to Monday kind of thing. And I think people lose sight of that so often, and it makes them feel absolutely crazy in their business, number one. But number two, it also makes them focus on the wrong things, meaning they don't worry so much about what's happening in the 90 days leading up, and they spend all their time, energy, effort, mental capacity, team time worried about those 4 days, or like, again, insert whatever your timeline is there. And then when that doesn't go how they want it to go or work in the way they want it to work, it's so easy to get so thrown and so frustrated. And so that's really what I want to talk about today is if it didn't go quite how you wanted it to go, or if just in general, you're looking for like, maybe you're launching in January and you want to make sure you're really prepared for that. The number one thing you can do is think about what you're doing in the 60, 90, whatever, 30 days leading up to something and how you're building that connection with your audience, because the right connection with your audience will almost always translate versus something like sending the right emails for 3 days or 4 days or whatever that is. Like they're not the right emails if you're not already connected. So silly but obvious example here is like someone could send you like the perfect message if you were dating. That's like, I love everything about you. I think these things about you are so amazing. Whatever, like said everything to you that you could ever imagine wanting someone to say. But if you don't have a connection with them at all, or if they like ghosted you for the 30 days before that and then sent you this message, it's going to be fucking weird, right? It's not going to land. You're not going to be like, oh my God, that was like the nicest, most impactful message ever. Like, I cannot believe like I get to connect with this person. I can't wait for our next date, blah, blah, blah. Or you're going to be like, weird, interesting, odd, moving on. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's so often how this like sales and launches go is you could write the most perfect email of all time ever. But if we haven't had any connection leading up to that, I'm like, okay, interesting. Right? Or I'm like, oh my God, Lacey, how did you know? Like, it's such a different vibe for the exact same email, exact same post, exact same writing, But it has so much to do with what kind of relationship we had leading up to that. Does that make sense? Tell me if that lands or if you have a good example of that. Elisa said it's like getting worried to gain weight during the holidays when in fact your health and fitness is determined by how you live all year round and not those couple of days of indulging. So true. So true. Oh, you don't mind Bennett running around and interrupting. Well, that might be fun. We'll do that sometime. I'm sure he would absolutely love it. Although maybe he wouldn't. He is one of those kids where like he will do the cutest shit. And then as soon as you like take out your camera to capture it, he's done. He's like, I cannot perform. So who knows how that will go, but maybe we'll try it. Jai said, what would you say builds audience connection the most? Okay, great question. So that's definitely what we can dive into. So you really want to think about that relationship, your connection to your audience, and think about the ways to do that. So this is going to like, I sort of hate speaking on this, which I think is why I've probably never done a live stream on this. I do talk to clients about it a lot, but it's definitely one of those things that's like a little frustrating to talk about because it's so not tangible in so many ways. But we're going to go there and we're going to talk about it because it's really what I see makes the difference. But the biggest thing I noticed there is, are you letting your audience really feel your heart, feel you, feel your energy, feel who you are? And again, I know that sounds intangible, but I'm going to try to like land that and what I mean here. But I think so many people online are doing what they think they should be doing or saying what they think they should be saying. And then add add to that, the online landscape is, in many ways sort of built for that, because a lot of, like, let's take Instagram, but I think this is everywhere, right? A lot of what works right now is like, find trending audio that someone has already used, or find a trending post and do that. Like, an example I can think of for that is like, those haunted house posts for Halloween, that was like a haunted house, but like, I jumped on that trend. I made that post. It was super funny. But like, what I'm trying to say is that a lot of the way content is created, produced, even like, getting good reach on it, is in many ways a bit copy and paste, right? It's like taking someone else's idea and putting your own spin on it, or taking an audio and translating it, right? And so with that, what can happen sometimes is you can really lose your authenticity very quickly if you're not careful, and you can really lose that opportunity for your audience to really see and feel who you are and feel connected to you in a true, real way. So like, you could do the copy paste kind of post and say what you think you're supposed to say, or you can do that and really put your spin on it and really put your heart into it. And what 98% of the online space is doing is saying what you think you're supposed to say, right? And I think we all just accidentally fall into that sometimes. Even like, it's just like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to like share a win here and brag here and do this thing here and whatever, insert. And really, like, those are never the things that go super well. It's really interesting because I've been doing a lot more reels, as you guys know. And I'm like a data freak, right? So I'm like studying and looking at what's performing best for me, what's, not quite landing, what is my audience loving the most, what am I loving the most? And hands down, by far, it is when I am like the most me and the most authentic that it goes well. What happens to be the most me and most authentic is when I'm a little like cheeky, or, calling something out, or having like a strong stance on something, which if you know me in person, I'm like, that tends to be my personality. Like, I like to poke holes. I want to be like, why are we thinking about it in this way? I always want to think about it in a new way. My Enneagram is like the challenger. I'm an 8, right? Like, that is so true to me. And then the posts that I've done, or the reels that I've done that like are trying to be like more cheerleadery and more encouraging, don't do as well. And it's so funny because in person, I don't think that that's something I really bring to the table a lot. Like, I'm super supportive and loving and nurturing, but I definitely don't have like that cheerleader vibe at all. I think even my clients would say that, like, it's not like they don't feel me cheering them on. Again, it's just not my natural inclination. I'm not like super inspo-y. Like, I'm not going to deliver the like massively inspirational TED talk. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just not really how I function the best. And so whenever I've tried a reel that's like that a little bit, it's like fine, but it just doesn't, it doesn't do the job. It doesn't quite land. And by the way, this is like a side note, but it's worth saying, like, it's totally fine to try things and have it not land and keep going. Like, the point isn't to get every piece of content, every reel, whatever, pop in. It's to try a bunch of things, look at the data, learn from it, move on. Yeah. Oh, you love my rage era. Thank you, Elisa. Apparently that's it for me, right? Which also is so true. Fascinating. I love this realization about your reels. Yeah. Enneagram 7 here. I feel like I'm the complete opposite. Give me all the big inspirational TED Talks all day. Right, Elisa. And that's so freaking important, right? Because this is exactly what I mean here. I'm so grateful to you for saying that, because like, you could look at mine, or I could look at yours and be like, oh, I'm supposed to be like more inspirational. Okay, let me try to do that. Let me try to get there. Let me try to go there. And I could, and it would probably be fine. And it wouldn't be like a bad piece of content or whatever. But it's like, not really going to fully land, right? Or like opposite, you could be like, oh man, I really love seeing Lacey in her rage era, and she's always got something to say. Let me try to like do more like that. And it would be fine, but it probably wouldn't fully land. And so I think that it's really, really helpful to see that this is what we mean by like showing your audience your heart, letting them feel you, see you, know who you really are. And people can just read that energy, right? Like, you really can tell when someone is like in it with themselves and like in their thing. Like, I feel like on some of my reels, you can tell that I'm just having fun doing them. Like, I'm in this stage where they feel really fun to me. And I think that's like what I mean is like, you can feel someone's energy and heart in that versus you can tell when it's like, I'm supposed to be doing this. I do not want to be here. I do not want to be doing this. Or like, you could even tell on the one, I have to probably find it and link it. But there's one where you can tell that I'm like trying to be inspirational and it's like, so something to consider. But it's like really important for people to be able to feel you, I think. Yeah, so many thoughts. Do you think this has to do with the fact that people love polarity online? Shoot, Alessia, I missed the end of that. Do I think it has to do with people loving polarity online? I would love for you to case the rest of that if that's helpful at all, or if not, I'll just answer that if that was enough context. Michelle said, love this reminder about bringing our full selves to the way we show up in content. Yes. Sveta says real and raw here. Yes, yes, yes. Lisa says, I know have as part of my onboarding for my visibility coaching MBTI, Astro and human design forms for exactly that reason. Yeah, I love that. Makes so much sense. And I think that's true. Like, it's not like you have to follow any of those things exactly, like, oh, this is your astrology, and so now you must act in this way or whatever. This is your Enneagram, and so now you must only create reels that are controversial or whatever the fuck. Like, it's not that. And I know that's not what Elisa is saying either, but having a way to be like, this is who I naturally am. How can I put that in content? How can I express that? How can my audience feel me, feel my energy, feel what it's like to work with me, be in my presence? Or are they just seeing a produced version of that? Are they just seeing a reel where Lacey tried to be inspirational and something's just not connecting with them there? Like, there's this, my TikTok and Instagram had like so much mom shit on it for obvious reasons. And there's one woman who I love watching. Like, you can just tell she loves creating content. You can tell that she's so real and raw about it. She's so like aligned. I don't know how else to say it. And there's this other person who pops up on my thing a lot, and it feels so forced. Like, it feels like she's trying to find the like deepest, darkest thing she could possibly find and say it every single day. I'm like, that's totally fine if that's your vibe. But when I like get that energy, I feel like, oh, I don't like that, feels quite forced for me. I'm not like, oh, she's in her truth. I'm like, oh, I feel like she's looking for that. Do you know what I mean? And I think it feels really, really different. And we have to stop pretending like our audience doesn't experience that, can't read our energy, isn't discerning. You know, I think the way we build connection with our audience is we realize that they're very discerning and can read us, you know? Hi, Angie. Oh, it's so good to see you. Angie, you're so great at this. You totally bring your full self. Lisa says, yes, it's all about self-awareness and getting that data about yourself and figuring out what works. Totally. I want to answer Alessia's question before I forget. She was saying basically, like, do I think that that's working because people like polarity? I think probably to a certain extent, yes. But I think that like a lot of different things work. Like, people also love really, really inspirational shit, you know, and like kind of cheerleading and stuff. Like, the things I see get the most like comments, you know, shares, engagement, all of that kind of stuff on Instagram to a certain extent are those like super inspirational things. And so I don't think there's like just one thing that works, like polarity or inspiration or whatever. I think many of those things hit us in different ways. And I think finding the thing that you're best at and leaning into that is really kind of like where the magic is, and where you're going to feel like it's the easiest for you to come up with stuff, but your audience is also going to translate that and read that in a way that really lands. So I think if you're naturally not super polarizing or controversial, trying to be that all the time is going to be draining, and it's going to translate into your content in not a good way, in my opinion. People often say to me, just that people often say to me, are you naturally this deep? And I'm like, yes, right. Like, that's what works. Like, if you're trying to always be surface level in your content when really you're super deep, there's always going to be an off energy in that. And we're not going to be able to place it. And we're not going to be able to put our finger on it. It's just going to be like, I can't quite feel Jess. I can't quite connect with her. I can't quite feel her heart, you know? And that's so important. Michelle said, I feel like the universe has been banging this lesson over my head for you lately. I love that. So happy to be part of that. I mean, the best case study is Elise Myers. She was so herself, and that is what made her blow up this way. And she has a great audience too. I love that. I don't know who that is. I don't think. I will look her up. Or maybe I do, and I just can't land it right now. But I think that's amazing. But yes, anyone that is so themselves, I think always translates and always brings a great audience along with them, because their audience feels a connection to them. They're like, I can feel your heart. I can feel your energy. I feel like I already know you, and it feels authentic. And that is when it lands, right? And when you have all that leading up to a launch and then you go to sell them something, it feels like, oh yeah, this person that I already know, already have a connection with, already have a relationship with, already know what her energy and experience feels like. It's easy to buy. And when you don't, I think that's missing or when you, oh my God, duh, of course it's missing. And when you don't have that, and when that is missing, it's much harder to make sales. Michelle said every day is a new revenge. Oh, you'll send me her profile. Okay, thank you. At least I would love that. Dominique said, how do you figure out how to translate how you naturally connect with people through your content? I mean, honestly, I think one way is just to test things. Like that's kind of what I was saying with the reels is like, for me, I wasn't like, oh yes, the only way it's going to work is if I'm polarizing or something like that. It really wasn't that at all. I just tried a few different things. Like I tried some that were more inspirational. I tried some that were, more like hot take or whatever, although I hate calling it that, but maybe for funsies sometimes. But I think Shari and I were joking about that when she was on here last time, not last time, like last live stream, the last time she was on here. Anyway, but I think you just test it and see which ones feel the most fun to you, and then which ones people like the most. And there's almost always overlap there. Like I did one on like people not like being able to tell me how that you can't scale one-on-one or something. That is something I feel so passionate about, have so many hot takes around, had so much fun creating that reel. Like I just had a vibe and an energy about it, because it was like, who is this person who speaks to me as though I need their opinion, or some version of that, right? And it was like super funny, and I just like had fun doing it. And that one performed really well as an example. And so sometimes you kind of just have to test a bunch of things and not make that wrong, like, and see what sort of lands for you the most. But I also think you can think about how you tend to interact with your clients the most. Like, I feel like, again, from like the cheerleader perspective, if I think about how I interact with my clients, I don't think I really take on like that cheerleader vibe ever. And so of course that's not going to translate in my content as much, or it's going to feel like I have to be this totally different person to make content. And I think that's something people really struggle with too, when it feels like, I'm one person over here, and then I'm supposed to be this entirely different person in my content, or this entirely different person online. For me, it's so funny. I actually didn't even think about this until I just said this out loud. But like for me, I think that's one of the reasons who, oh my God, I just totally lost my train of thought. Holy shit. I have this felt Christmas tree for Bennett, and my brain was just like, when are we hanging that? Anyway, hi. Okay. So what I was going to say is the thing that just landed for me is that, I think that's one of the reasons I did not jump on reels quite early on, because it felt like it was only like dancing and pointing for such a long time. And that is so anti my personality in every way. Like I need to be like 10 drinks deep to be like really dancing. And I don't drink anymore. So that would be really, really difficult. But like so much of that felt like dancey, cheerleadery, like da, da, da. And I'm sure there were people not doing it like that. So I'm really not trying to pass a judgment there. But for me, it just felt so off for so long. And I feel like as they've really evolved and people have used them in a million different ways, and so many creators have kind of like furthered the concept, now I'm like, oh, I can find my space in here. Okay, I can find a space that works for my personality in here, and that feels really important. And so I'm sure that was part of why I like didn't do it, because I think my audience would have been able to feel how off that was for me. And I don't think it would have been worth it, and it wouldn't have translated. I love the advice to lean into the fun side of things 100%. And that's, I think, to me, that's what's cool about like the social landscape right now is like, yes, it's so much more complicated, and there are a million more things you can do and ways you can do it. But the thing that's so cool about it is also that, right? It's not like you just make a picture and it has to be like this, really beautiful styled photo, and then you make a post, right? It's like you have a million things. Like, do you want to lip sync? Do you want to do B-roll? Do you want to dance? Do you want to not do like I just feel like there's so many other options now versus it just being kind of like you have to be doing it this one way. Just said no, you're very much okay, says who vibe, right? Like I'm not like, go get him, girl. I'm like, says who, bitch, right? And I think it's important to translate that. And also it's, what's going to make it so that when people do hire you and you do get clients from it, they're the clients who love that version of you and who love that vibe versus if you're trying to be like insert thing, whatever, super polarizing, and you're actually the cheerleader or vice versa. I'm just using these archetypes. These are not the only ones, by the way. It's just easy for the purposes of this, but it's going to be weird. It's going to feel off in your coach client relationship because you want to be who you are on the front end as you are on the back end. And so finding a way to translate that, make sure your audience can really feel you, not only gets you more sales because they feel connected to you, but it gets you the right sales. It gets you the clients who are like, ooh, I love the okay says who vibe. Like that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want more of in my life. Awesome. I can fill that gap. If they're like, oh, I'm really, really looking for the cheerleader vibe, amazing. It's totally okay to want. And like, I'm probably not going to be the coach you're most obsessed with. So that's good to be able to filter out, Michelle said so true. Seb says, does feel like that to me. Oh, I think you were saying feels like that to me with the like reels and the pointing, which again, I so get, but I do think there are more ways to play into that and do that now than there ever has been, which is, like I even see so many people making like the funny reels where it's not even their face. It's like a background with a funny meme or something like that. And so I just think there's so many ways to go about it now that feel like there's an in for the type of like personality you bring. Michelle said, now I want a quiz that's like, what's your personality archetype? I'm gonna go ask ChatGPT after this. Content personality. You do spells on yours. I love that. Content personality archetype. Michelle, you keep us posted. Okay. I'm very curious about that. I think that would be great. And again, it doesn't mean you have to live in this box, right? Like the point isn't to be like, oh, I can only ever post polarizing content. It's not that at all. It's just to say, does this feel fun to me? Does this feel exciting to me? Does this feel like something I want to share? Does this feel like me trying to push myself into a box that I'm supposed to be in? Or does this feel like me being like, ooh, I want to create that? Like, I cannot wait to put that reel out. Like, you guys know, because I've bragged about this literally nonstop, so might as well do it again. I have 12 drafts. Everybody remembers me talking about my 12 reels drafts, but like, I have a bunch of them sitting there and I can tell which ones I was like, ooh, that one I was like on fire for, where I was like, oh, that one I was like kind of trying something. And I'll probably post all of them. Like, it's not like I need it to be perfect or like the one where I was trying something is bad. It's just like not making yourself wrong for that either. Not being like, why isn't this working better? It's like, oh yeah, I can see how like that one didn't have my full heart in it. And that's not going to go as well or translate as well. And that's totally okay. So I think the point I really want to make here is like, I know I've said it like 6 times like this, but your audience being able to feel you is absolutely everything. And something I want to say about this that's important is, you guys know traditionally I've not shared a lot of like my personal side. I always say that, but that's not entirely true. I mean, I was like super open on Happy Thoughts. I've shared everything about my divorce, but I don't share a lot of the like day to day. Like I'm not storing my whole day kind of thing, right? That's just never something I've like found easeful personally. But that's not the only way to let people feel you. That's not the only way they can see your heart. That's not the only way they can build connection with you. Of course, that's one way to build connection with you. Like my best friend Sarah does that so well. So well. If you guys aren't following her on Instagram, immediately follow her. Oh my God, what is it? Hold on. Now I need to look. It's Sarah Wiles, but I don't know if it's like a dot or a space or a what. Hold on. I'm going to look. Sarah_Wiles, Wiles, right? We always joke about how we always come at things so different, but we always have like the same values and stuff. So this is like a total example of how we come at things so different, right? Sarah will story like her whole day, her whole life, right? But that's also so Sarah. Like I'll get random voice notes all day where she's like, and now I'm walking in the park and oh, I see a bird and hold on, now I'm distracted because da 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 da. And like that is her, and you can feel her heart in it. You're not like, oh my God, that's so manufactured and forced. You're like, oh my God, that's so her. Like anytime I watch her stories, I'm like, of course that's her. Right. And I think similarly to me, she knows that that's never going to be me. Mine is like, here's what I think you should know today or whatever. Right. Um, and so I think that it's just really helpful to see that like that is one way to build connection, but it's not the only way to build connection. And like it's not required. Like I think that's where people get stuck on some of this. When you say like build a relationship, build connection, they're like, oh my God, I have to share my whole day and my whole life. And that's not true at all. You can share what feels good to you, what you want, what aligns for you, what's in line with your values, what feels easy, all the things, and it will translate, you know. Dominique said it's been cool to see how you're exploring sharing more about your personal life through your content recently. Thank you so much, Dominique. Well, you know, I think that's similar to that rigidness that I was talking about before that I've like really been letting go of. Is like, again, I'm probably never going to like document my whole day or something. That again just doesn't feel like my natural tendency. But I've also realized how that can be a story that then makes me not share anything personal. And I really don't have a thing about that. Like, I'm not like, oh, I need to be super guarded and protected. That's not it at all. I just never want to feel like my business is based on me having to do something that doesn't feel natural to me. So like if my business is based on me like needing to share on Instagram all day and that's super not natural to me, that's going to be really hard. So I've always tried to shy away from that. But I've just realized so much of how it became almost like this ring fence thing that it doesn't have to be. And so thank you. I just appreciate you saying that. Michelle said, okay, Chat GPT said that according to my birth chart, I'm the empathetic transformational guide. According to my AI bestie, you are skilled at taking complex, often internal experiences and making them relatable and inspiring, guiding your audience towards personal empowerment and self-discovery. I love that, Michelle. When you said that, I have no idea if you guys are similar in any way, shape, or form, but like when you said empathetic transformational guide, like taking complex internal experiences, making them relatable, I thought of Glennon Doyle immediately too. Like I think she's such a good one. Who shows up so authentically, does that so well, and you like feel her heart. And so I feel like that's a really good example there. Hey, Lacey. So yeah, I think the point I want to make here is there are like 100 ways to do this, right? There are 100 ways to like show your heart, show your energy, all that kind of stuff. There are also really easy ways to accidentally not do that. Like I was talking about how rigid I kind of got, where I'm like, I record in my office and I don't share personal shit. Right? It's fine. Obviously my business still grew over that time. Like I'm not hating on that. And also I think some of that was right for me, right time. You know, I was a new mom, all the things, right? But at the end of the day, like there is a way for you to do this that feels really good to you, and that is going to make your audience feel a connection to you. And if you build that before you launch, the launch is easy. If you haven't built that and you're launching, the launch is always going to feel more challenging. And then you're going to want to make it about the launch when it's usually not about the launch. Like if you're launching and your audience isn't connecting with you at all through that, if they have nothing to say about it, like you just don't have the connection there, right? That's really like a big piece of it. Julie said late to the party, but love this combo. Thanks for being here, Julie. And again, I'm talking general here. So it's not like everyone needs to be like, oh my God, this is what this means for me. Like people do not need to be in your DMs 24/7, like banging down your door to mean you have a connection with them by any means. But I think just being able to know that you feel really, really true to yourself and how you show up and seeing that translate is always what matters. Hey, Janet, welcome. And, you know, I think it's such a good, like, I think it's such a good way to like review your stuff. Like go back and look at your content and be like, was my heart in that? Was that what I was supposed to say, or was my heart in that? Did I like really pour my heart into that one? And I don't mean that you have to like, you know, like bleed out for every post or something like that. But I just mean like, does it feel like something you would want to share, want to say? Is it natural for you? Is it authentic to you? Do you feel like you let your people really see you, or do you have this big wall up? You know, I think that so often people accidentally kind of bring this big wall to their audience. They're like, I'm supposed to seem perfect and I'm supposed to seem like I have it all together. And so I have this big wall up because I don't want you to see anything else. And then they cannot break through that wall with their audience. They cannot actually create the connection because they're kind of trying to like project this perfect front, and they're doing all the right things and they're saying all the right things. And they're like, what the fuck isn't working? I'm doing all the right things. I'm saying all the right things. I'm letting them see me in the right way. I have perfect branding, all the things. What the hell? And usually that's the what the hell, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're like planning out everything, if you're watching your image so closely, if you're planning out every launch to a T, if you're like trying to do all the right things and you just don't feel that connection and don't feel it landing, it's probably because you accidentally built that wall up in trying to seem so perfect. And I think it's really easy to do that as a coach. Is like we feel like we're supposed to present a certain air of confidence and all of that kind of stuff that we forget can be nuanced. I think that that's like the thing I live for in business, is being like, it can be both. Like I can be sitting here telling you guys, oh, I noticed that I got rigid about things in this way and I'm shifting it, without diminishing my own value or expertise as a coach in any way, shape, or form. Right. And I think you can do the same with your audience. Happy Gemini full moon, Michelle. Oh, exciting. I'll have to check my astrology today and see what's up. Hey, Kristen. So I think that's really it. I feel like I could go on and on about this forever, but I also feel like you guys know the gist and you kind of get what I'm saying here. So I don't know that I need to beat it to death, but this is what I really want to say. If you bring this into 2024 with you, it is going to feel so different to show up. And wait until you have that. Like that's another thing that I'll say too with like the Reels piece for me, is that it didn't feel good until it did. And then when it did, I ran with it. Right. I didn't feel motivated around it enough to a certain extent until I did, in terms of like realizing like, okay, the space has changed quite a bit. I think this is important. And then I ran with it. So it's like, you don't have to do anything that you don't want to do until you're ready to do it necessarily, but finding that thing that feels aligned to you, authentic for you, and then actually running at it and going there and showing your audience your heart. And it is going to be so useful. And it doesn't mean it'll go perfect every time. It doesn't mean like everything you ever do is going to pop or be perfect, but it just means you're going to feel good about it regardless. And it means it's going to be easy to do, right? Like Reels are hard to do if you're like, I'm supposed to be dancing and pointing and I hate that and I never do that and it's so ick and I feel so gross about this and but I'm going to do it because I'm supposed to. Right? And you guys are going to feel that. Or it's like, ooh, it would be really fun to blah, blah, blah. Let me do that. Let me have some excitement around this. Okay, cool. I'm really feeling that. Let me run with it. And then like that translates, right? Yeah, Alessia said it's so easy to make rigid rules for ourselves about content or the way we have to do things always. Yep. Hey, Laura. Michelle said, so important not to force anything either, because again, more universe lessons that it's being over my head. Yeah, I mean, I think that you want to find the thing that feels good and exciting and easeful and then get strategic about that and not the other way around. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, when I wasn't doing Reels, I had plenty of other things that were feeling really good. Like you guys know, I've always doubled down on this group and my podcast. And so it's not like the business wasn't doing well or growing. It was fine. I was just like pouring into that at that time. And that's where you could really feel my heart and my energy. And now, and I was really strategic about it. And now this feels really fun. And this is where I'm pouring my heart and energy. And I'm going to be really strategic about that too. I'm going to study what's working. I'm going to use the data and I'm going to like adjust accordingly. But like at the baseline, the thing feels good and fun. And it feels like I can put my heart in it. And so you really want to come at it from that angle. It's not like, oh my gosh, how can I be really strategic? And then I'll figure out like what feels good. It's kind of the other way. It's like, what feels really good to me? What feels really true to me? What feels really aligned to me? And then how can I be strategic around that? I think those are such different ways of seeing things. I think that's such a different way of coming at things. And that's when you really feel, I think, the most aligned, does data will teach you how to analyze social media data? We teach you how to analyze traffic data. So like what social is sending the most things to you. So we also teach you how to set up like UTM. So you can know like, oh, this story sent this many people to our website and this story actually created this many buyers, right? So that's how we really teach analyzing social media data. We're not necessarily analyzing just like how many likes did you get or something, because that's so nebulous. We're really trying to teach you like what actions did these different things make your potential clients, students, whatever, take, and then how can you analyze that? Because what we see when we look at data like that is like sometimes you'll have something that gets like a ton of likes or engagement, but it translated to like no traffic or buyers. Or sometimes you have something that had less so, but it translated to a lot of traffic or many buyers. Or, sometimes what we see is like you'll have a platform that can send a lot of traffic, but you get almost no buyers for it. But you have a platform that maybe sends less traffic, but you get a lot of buyers from it. So we try to teach like the nuance of that, I guess, if that makes sense, Michelle. So we're not necessarily like, okay, let's look at every post for like how many likes and comments you got. We're more like, what action did this make them take? And then how do we analyze that? So let me know if that answers your question, but happy to go into that more if that's helpful. But, that to me, that's like what makes it really exciting is it's not just about those like vanity metrics, but it's about like what's actually creating results here. But again, like you don't have to go that deep right away, although like now would be the time if you do want to do that. Because again, our Dateable sale ends tonight at 11. It's amazing. You should really get in. But like you could just be like, I just want to expand my reach. Like I'm just going to look at my reach numbers and see like if that's going up. Like you could just start there, right? But definitely do look at the data and get strategic about it if you're doing stuff that feels really good for you and aligned for you, So, all right, I hope that helps. If you guys have questions about our sale, let me know. $100 gift card today. And then remember, every live stream in November or in December is 200. I think that's all I got. I hope that was helpful. I hope it was a good reminder. I know it's kind of nebulous, but I think it's such an important one. And I think when you can just remember that, like, the relationship you have with your audience is just like the relationship you have with anyone else, is like, they want to feel you. They want to feel your heart. They want to feel your energy. If they feel a wall up, it's not going to translate. It really gets easier to build it and it gets easier to see what might be in the way of it. So I hope that helps. I hope you guys have an amazing Cyber Monday and a beautiful week. And I'll see you next week. Bye, y'all.